My name is Anna Kosovicheva. I'm an assistant professor here in the Department of Psychology at UTM, and I co-direct the Applied Perception and Psychophysics Lab, or the Applied Lab. What our lab is interested in is questions to do with visual perception. So what we're interested in is how do we interpret the visual information from the world around us. So I would say that a lot of the time we take visual perception for granted. We just open our eyes and we see. But really our brains do a lot of work in interpreting the visual information that we get. And so we're interested in both fundamental research of how it is that we're able to do this. How is it that we're able to, say, see a baseball flying through the air and be able to catch it? These have to do with basic visual processes, right? We have to see the motion of the ball, we have to be able to reach out and catch it, but we also have to understand how visual perception applies more broadly in the world. We, as I said, are the Applied Perception and Psychophysics Lab, so what we're really interested in is kind of taking our knowledge or understanding of basic visual mechanisms and applying them to applied questions. So how is it that we use visual perception to, say, drive a car, or read text on a screen, or potentially how we can use our knowledge of visual perception to assess or evaluate visual function in people who have impaired vision. So I started off as an undergraduate in psychology at UC Berkeley in California. There I was a psychology major. I took a lot of psychology classes and got really interested in visual attention. So I did undergraduate research projects in visual attention, and then I got a full-time job doing research at UC Berkeley again in a different lab, doing basically EEG and pharmacology studies of visual attention. And then for doing my PhD, I stayed in the same place, just switched to a different lab. I studied visual motion perception, how it is that we're able to use motion to localize or determine where things are in the world. And after that, I moved to Boston to do a postdoc. So there I spent 5 years in a lab, basically kind of taking the knowledge that I had gained during my PhD and applying it to the study of patients who have visual impairments. Visual disorders not just affect the eye, but they also affect the brain. And then after that, I moved to UTM to start up the Applied Perception and Psychophysics Lab. I found research, broadly speaking, to be very interesting because it involves a lot of problem solving and getting to kind of think through and really think about deep, important questions. Compared to other types of jobs or other types of things that I could be doing, I find that it's never boring. I'm always thinking about different problems and I'm kind of working on different questions kind of on a day-to-day basis. So I would say that I got really interested in studying perception specifically because it really is the foundation for the rest of psychology. Without the ability to take in any kind of sensory input, whether vision or hearing or touch or smell or taste, we would essentially have no mental life. Sensation and perception is so important to our interactions with the world that without it we wouldn't be able to do anything else. So perception is really important. I would say that all of us at some fundamental level are vision scientists because we make observations all the time. And another reason why I'm interested in visual perception is that it's very interdisciplinary. So basically I get to draw from many different fields of study on a regular basis. Visual perception really kind of sits at the intersection of several different fields. The intersection of psychology, where we kind of study the perceptual experience, but we can also draw from other fields like biology and neuroscience. We can kind of think about the neural mechanisms underlying the processes that we study, but also it draws from many other fields too. We have to think about the optics of the eye, so we draw a bit from physics. We also draw a bit from the visual arts. So a lot of artists, for example, think about visual perception in interesting ways, and we can kind of find examples of principles of visual perception in art. Also draws a bit from medicine, so if we're interested in studying how can we efficiently evaluate visual perception in patient populations, it really draws from a variety of different fields. What I enjoy most about research is that it's never boring. I get to try different things all the time. There's a lot of freedom in what I'm able to do. For example, one day I might be learning to program something in a new programming language. I might be giving a presentation. Another day I might be sitting and reading papers and really thinking about fundamental kind of theoretical questions in visual perception. Or I might be spending time teaching and mentoring students, which I really love doing. I love sharing my knowledge with other people and teaching them things. So I would say that what I love most about research is just the sheer variety and the freedom to get to study what I want and to train students. I would say that the hardest part about research is that a lot of the time we kind of learn that hard work results in success. So the more we work, the more successful we are. The kind of frustrating part about research is that that isn't always the case. A lot of the time it is, but you can potentially work really hard on something and try something and spend a lot of time on it, and it sometimes just doesn't work out. A lot of luck involved in research. So sometimes things work and you're lucky. Sometimes things don't work and you're unlucky. And I think the important thing is to kind of just accept that and just take that into account when you're doing research. Largely, I really love teaching and mentoring students. I think it's my absolute favorite thing to do. And I really enjoy when I can kind of talk about perception or show a demo to a student and get them really excited and interested. I think that's really my favorite thing. I love visual perception demos, and I think they're a really great way to kind of spark interest when I can get them to kind of really think about the same questions or interesting questions or think about their own perceptual observations. I think that's really important, and I think it's one of the things that I really enjoy most. The best advice I have for my undergraduate self is to be very open about different courses and different fields of study. Back when I was an undergraduate, I had a very limited and kind of strange notion of psychology, that it was all about clinical psychology and studying and treating people with different types of mental disorders. And so I was really hesitant to take psychology classes because I thought, I'm not really interested in that. I don't want to become a therapist, for example. And then I took Introduction to Psychology and I realized, oh wow, this is a really fascinating field. I had no idea that people actually researched and studied things like visual perception, how it is that we interpret the world around us, how is it that we think about things. And so it really opened up my mind to different areas of research, and I think that was particularly important for me in terms of my career path. So one thing I wish I had done as an undergraduate too was take courses in other departments like computer science. I turn out to use programming and computer programming a lot in my kind of day-to-day research, and I think that's something that I could have really benefited from as an undergraduate, and it's something that I really enjoy. So I would just say be very open to different areas of study. My goals are kind of twofold. So one is I want to use visual perception research to make a difference in the world. So kind of in the research that I did, kind of moving from my graduate degree onto my postdoc and now into faculty job, I've kind of had more of an applied emphasis, right? So how can we use our fundamental knowledge and the tools and the methods that we have in visual perception to really improve lives for people? So that kind of comes from different angles, I would say. My other long-term goal is really to train the next generation of vision scientists. So as I mentioned, I really enjoy teaching and mentoring students and working with them one-on-one and passing on a lot of the knowledge and skills so that they can kind of go off and apply their knowledge of visual perception in the world.